Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Raggedy Pack. We are watching Game of Thrones Season 3, Histories and Lore today.
Not 4.
Not 4, 3.
3.
I thought we had already watched Season 3, so I was ready to watch Season 4, but alas, we're not there yet. Histories and Lore, we do for you guys. It's done pretty well on the channel, I'd say.
What about me?
We do it for Igley too, because...
Yeah.
We care about his viewing experience. I say we. You guys do. I'm just here to bully him and keep him in check.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, I don't think there's really much to talk about beforehand. Igley will do his thing where he takes a lot of notes and we'll talk about it afterwards. But is that really all we want to talk about?
I got one thing I want to say.
Oh, go ahead. Yeah.
I can't wait to hear a nice little voiceover from some of my favorite dead characters.
From the grave.
From the grave. Perhaps from the final time, barring flashbacks or some sort of supernatural magic that would have them rise again, which I don't think would happen. But hearing Rob and Kat will be bittersweet.
Well, hopefully there is a Rob and a Kat, because...
I would assume yes.
Well, I screened it and I don't recall either of them. So
okay, just spoil it for me.
I mean,
why don't you?
I didn't watch them all.
The Band-Aid off.
Mm-hmm.
Just tempering your expectations, you know.
Just
maybe
tell
I'm
me
lying.
Show.
Maybe I'm lying.
You do love to lie.
I do like to lie.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, is that all you wanted to say?
Yeah.
Okay, well, before we get into this, if you enjoy this, hit that like button, subscribe, hit that notification bell so you don't miss when we get back into Game of Thrones, which this comes out not related to that timeline. So we'll be starting Season 4 very shortly after this goes live. And we have a Patreon that you can check out in the description below, where you get full-length access to everything on our channel and early access to Game of Thrones and other select shows. We have a free Discord you can join. Link for that's in the description below. And there's links to our social medias, TikTok, Instagram, Twitter. And yeah, let's get into this reaction.
Let's do it.
New minute.
New minute.
New minute.
You will know you're reborn tonight.
Like
Sasageyo.
Valyria was not the first to conquer the world. In the dawn of days, the city of Geese opened its gates and poured forth its legions across the continent of Essos.
Look, Rome. Wait, they look like they're Unsullied.
They ground entire nations beneath their boots and planted the harpy in every corner of the known
world.
the
Free
Harpy
cities.
What they didn't destroy, they changed.
What, the titties?
Slavery is as old as man, but until the Giscari, it was never an art. The slave lords grew rich and fat as pyramids were raised around them, pleasure houses were filled, and fighting pits were...
Pleasure houses? What?
Nobody remembers if the waters around Geese had names before the Empire, but ever since, we know them only as Slaver's Bay and the Gulf of Grief. Of Geese, however, nothing remains but ruins, where end all great civilizations. 5,000 years ago, Valyrian shepherds stumbled on strange eggs.
Oh.
And within a few generations, an upstart
Dragons.
Valyrian freehold rose across the sea. 5 times did the Giscari contend with Valyria. 5 times
Wait,
did they go
what?
down in defeat. For the
An actual harpy?
dragons, and the Empire
This is new to me.
the best of their legions burned, the others broke. The brick walls of Geese were pulled down, the streets and buildings turned to ash, and the very fields sown with salt, sulfur, and skulls. The Empire
Alliteration.
was not wholly destroyed. Astapor, Yunkai, and Marine, once lowly colonies along Slaver's Bay, survived and even thrived.
How they doing now, though?
The Giscari grow rich and powerful off the backs of conquered peoples, and now the self-styled Freehold wanted its turn. While the Dragon Lords brought the world to heel, the slave markets of their former enemy never lacked for flesh. Lamenting the lost empire, the descendants of old Geese grew rich and fat. The doom fell on Valyria, and the Dothraki rose to pillage most of the continent at will.
Okay.
Gold-laden Astapor, Yunkai, and Meereen continue as they have for thousands of years, untouched. For even the Horse Lords understand what the Giscari taught Valyria so long ago. What good are slaves without slavers?
Damn. Okay.
When the Doom claimed Valyria,
Are we not getting like title cards on these ones? Interesting.
and upstart nations, ripe for the taking.
You need title cards?
The Dothraki, the
Help me
Horse
organize my
Lords
notes.
who feared only defeat and dragons. And now the dragons were
Make
all
your own
gone.
title cards.
Under the
True.
great Karl Temu, they sacked and burnt every town and city in their path. No army could stand against them, because the Dothraki do not stand.
God damn.
The Horse
Those
Lords
whips?
do not draw up battle lines or hide behind shield walls.
Reminds me of Elden
or
Ring.
array themselves in armor.
True.
The Dothraki charge.
This
Their
could be
blades
us
are
right
more
now.
scythe and sword,
True.
the better to cull the infantry ranks without breaking stride. Even their archers fire from horseback so that advancing or retreating, the arrows never cease. To
Nice.
the Dothraki, a man who does not ride is no man at all, without honor or pride. When the city of Quohor realized Karl Temu was coming, they strengthened their walls, doubled their own guards, and hired 2 full companies of sellswords. The Dothraki were used to glorified farmers with spears. Quohor would
But a
show
proper
them
army?
proper army with mounted
wow.
and armored cavalry
Okay.
to match
Have you
the
seen this
hordes
before?
of
Once or
An
twice.
afterthought, the city leaders sent an envoy to Astapor to buy Unsullied. The slavers had always claimed that the Unsullied were the great Giscari legions come
Yo.
again. Few cared.
Unsullied versus
Dragon-burned
Dothraki?
ruins of Old Geese were a stark reminder that the age of the foot soldier was over. The envoy had his orders, however, and quickly bought 3,000 Unsullied for the long march back. For
I mean,
Unsullied
those spears
do
are
not
gonna do
ride.
work against horses.
But while they marched, Karl Temu arrived at Quohor. I can imagine how pleased the Karl was to finally face a challenge. By the end of the battle, crows and wolves feasted on what remained of Quohor's heavy horse. All
Oh.
the sellswords had fled. Quohor knew that the Dothraki would very soon break through the gates to rape, slave, and burn at their pleasure.
The moon is an egg.
The next day, Karl Temu woke to find, before the gates, 3,000 eunuchs in formation.
Let's go.
With only spears, shields, and
It's about to be
spiked
crazy.
helms. The Unsullied had slipped past the Karl's army in the night while the Dothraki feasted.
This is like 300,
Karl Temu
but
had many times
3,000.
their number and could easily have flanked the small force. But to the Dothraki, men on foot are fit only to be ridden down. 18 times the Horse Lords charged.
So they just
18
charged.
times.
Times the Unsullied locked their shields, lowered their spears.
Oh my god.
My soldiers do not buckle or yield.
20,000, dude. That's a crazy
When the
ratio.
Karl's archers
Oh my
rolled
God.
down on
Yeah.
them, the Unsullied lifted their shields above their heads until the squall passed,
This is 300.
and then they held the line.
They fought in the
Hold
shade.
the line.
Only 600 Unsullied remained, but more than 12,000 Dothraki lay dead, including Karl Temu and all his sons.
Jeez.
The new Karl led the survivors past the city gates, where one by one, each man cut off his braid and threw it down before the feet of the
For
Unsullied,
losing?
defeated and shamed forever. Since that day, the Unsullied fill the ranks of cities and households wealthy enough or desperate enough. Sellswords fight for gold, knights for glory, and Dothraki for blood. To a man, the Unsullied fight only to obey. With the right master over them, imagine how the forces of chaos would break against their shields.
Who's the right master,
The
huh?
conquerors, the madmen, the usurpers.
That's cool. So if
Bro, that's
the Dothraki
hilarious.
want to run it back,
They just suicide charged at him.
yeah.
Oh, this is your favorite,
Oh.
Iggly.
Comes from the blood Aegon
Joffrey.
spilled to win his crown. Fools. Blood doesn't soak into stone, no matter how hard I try. Aegon built his castle of red rock to remind people of the fires he'd roasted his enemies in. So whenever King's Landing looked up, they'd see the price of defiance. he knew the first rule of kings. Only fear keeps men in line.
Okay.
Fear and punishment. A lesson he taught his son, Maegor. When the builders finally finished the Red Keep, Maegor executed them all to keep its secrets safe. Rumor has it, miles of hidden passageways run behind the walls and under the floors. One day I'll have to find them. Traitors and women work in shadows. A king has no need for secrecy.
Okay.
Now, people name Maegor the Cruel, but I doubt any dare.
Maegor the Cruel?
His strength was all too rare in the degenerate Targaryen blood. The simpering Baelor the Blessed created the Maiden Vault to imprison his own sisters and save himself from carnal thoughts. Disgusting.
Okay.
Though, I admit a Prince Vault could be amusing when Tommen bores me. My favorite place in the Red
Your own
Keep?
brother?
So many. The Traitor's Walk, where I mount the heads of my enemies. It's a shame flesh rots so slowly. I've almost run out of spikes. The dungeons are also quite nice once you get past the first 2 levels.
I'm loving this
A
MTV
stable
Cribs
for
of King's
common
Landing.
criminals and private cells for useful highborns. How boring, I know. But then you come to the black cells. No windows, no torches, just darkness, and whatever you hear in there with you. Here we keep the greatest traitors until the king is ready for them, and with these
We saw that with
I
Ned.
often like to take my time.
Weird.
But I've heard rumors of an even lower, hidden level, Maegor's
Oh.
favorite. Once a man was taken here, he never saw the sun again, nor heard a human voice, nor breathed a breath free of agonizing pain.
The
Varys
rats?
must know the way, but that overgrown girl pretends not to. Maybe he fears I'll make
Okay.
him a victim.
I didn't process what he said.
Then again, torture chambers are just so private. Better to punish your
Bless you.
enemies where everyone can see and remember.
Thanks.
Like that Targaryen who forced his nephew to watch as he fed the boy's traitor mother to a dragon. Oh, what I could do with a dragon.
Yeah.
Even Ares, fool
No.
as he was, knew to burn
Can handle all
alive
that.
with an audience to spread the terror far and wide across his kingdoms. Of course, I know my favorite place now. When I sit on the Iron Throne,
The green
high
fire.
in the Red Keep, all of Westeros scuttles below me, like insects, waiting for my heel to land.
Mudmen.
Joffrey's just so fun to listen to, man.
Those are
Yeah.
just the most pleasant names
Mudmen?
our fellow Northerners have for us. The Crannogmen who live in the
Well, you
swamps
get
of the
one
neck.
of your favorite dead
Because we do not
characters
live
to
in
marry.
castles like them. Because we do not farm like them. Because we are not tall or
Who is
rich
this talking?
Like them.
This is
Through our veins flows the same blood. of
Reed,
first
the sister.
men, at times.
Really?
Maybe
Okay.
some.
Yeah.
We
What is her
still live
name?
much as they did,
Mira?
on floating
Mira.
islands
No.
in houses of thatch and woven
Mira's
reeds.
right.
What?
I
Who's
thought it
Reed?
was
Hunt
Talissa.
and tell our
Jojen.
children of our heroes.
That's what I thought it
The
was.
knight of the
No,
laughing
this
tree
is
who fought in the
Mira.
year of the false spring.
Who's Reed?
The last marsh king who challenged the Starks.
The
and
two
lost
people
his
with
crown and his
Bran.
daughter. And other stories.
Oh, Jojen?
older still, since
And Mira?
lost to the world. The neck was not always a swamp. In the Dawn Age, it was as dry and fertile as the rest of the north. But during the war with the First Men, the children of the forest brought down the hammer of waters on the neck, trying to break Westeros in two. When the waters finally receded, they left the bogs and swamps we know today.
God damn,
Many of the
terraforming.
First Men decided to fight on, but my ancestors wisely chose to heed the children's power and advance no farther. They beat their swords into frog spears and fish hooks, and settled a land forever devastated by the folly of war. Unlike the rest of Westeros, we keep no garrisons and raise no soldiers for petty spats with our neighbors. our land protects its own. An outsider will find in the neck an endless
Yeah, no one's going in there willingly.
Quicksands and green grass that looks solid to the unwary eye, but turns to water the instant you tread on it. If you're lucky enough to be armored, you'll only drown inside your own steel. If you're not,
my God,
you get to meet what swims in that water.
Okay.
Serpents and monstrous lizard lions with teeth like daggers
Lizard
and
lions.
never enough to eat. Don't worry, only your horse will live long enough to feel their poisons burning through it. If you somehow survive all this, you may find that a well-placed dart can be as deadly as any blade. Not that you'll see us blowing it your way. Since the fall of the last Marsh King, House Reed has ruled the Neck beneath the banner of a black lizard lion on a grey-green field. We are not wealthy, powerful, or known even to our own countrymen. Our home, Greywater Watch, is no castle you've ever seen. And seeing it once does not mean you'll ever find it again. For Greywater Watch moves.
Oh, is it a boat?
Would-be conquerors have died trying to find us. With war all around and our Stark Lord besieged on all sides, many more will doubtless soon try. They will look at us on a map and see a stranglehold for the north. And they will forget that the sea itself once entered the Neck, and not all of it returned.
They need to update that map.
Like the Starks, the blood of House Bolton runs back to the first.
This piece of shit.
Let's call those times the Age of Heroes. A mask for a savage world that bred savage men. The Lannisters swindled their enemies. The Storm Kings hammered them, and the Starks cut off their heads. In such company as this, were the Boltons really so indelicate? Unlike some other houses, my ancestors owned the Bolton words, "Our blades are sharp."
Seen that before.
They passed down not a Valyrian greatsword, but a knife, honed and thin enough to fit between the topmost layer of skin and the tissue below.
Okay.
And peel. For
Just a house of torturers.
Children, a naked man has few secrets, a flayed man none. In those dark days, they say that some of my more willful forebearers would even wear their enemies' skins as cloaks.
Okay, Leatherface.
No such tokens remain, if they ever existed.
Oh my God.
Certainly
Just
not
like
hanging in
strung
some
out.
secret room in the Dreadfort, as
I mean,
old wives and
that's
fools
talent, I guess.
insisted.
In one
I
piece.
suspect my house itself was responsible for spreading such rumors in the first place. Few weapons are as effective as terror, and this was an age of war. House against house, brother against brother. The Iron Men were on the rise, and never far from our shores. We must have seemed ripe for the taking, too busy fighting each other to deal with the raiders as they deserved. Thus the Starks took it upon themselves to unify the North, under them. They drove the pirates out of White Knife and claimed the eastern coast, and married the Marsh King's daughter for the Neck. A Stark wrestled for Bear Island and won. Or so they say. Silly stories. Blood and Steel won the North, and the Starks had the most of both. After years of war, my ancestors gave up their barbaric practices and bent the knee to their new kings. Thus House Bolton became what we are today. Loyal bannermen and staunch ally to the Starks.
Yeah, okay.
The second greatest house in the North.
About that.
The Westerlands are all bounded by three natural defenses: mountain, sea, and forest. Necessary barriers when the land is as rich as ours. From our mines come the gold and silver that fuel the rest of Westeros. From Lannisport, our largest city, come the most skillful gold and silversmiths in the land. Yet geography alone is not strength. The Westerlands would have been sacked and pillaged for thousands of years if it hadn't been for the men who ruled it. My family, House Lannister. According to legend, we trace our descent to Lan the Clever, a trickster of the Dawn Age, who swindled
Bland clever.
Casterleys out of Casterley Rock, their ancient castle. A childish story, but not without merit. 1. A mind can and should be a weapon in a man's arsenal. 2. Lan must have been clever enough not to rely solely on his wits. After all, where today is House Casterly. 3.
He's dead on the ground right there.
Casterly name on the castle, Lan reminded the world of the price of getting in his way. The Rains ignored all these lessons. Not content with being the second richest family, they sought to challenge the first. Mine. My father had put up with their insults and disrespect. When I came of age, I led our army to teach them what they should have known. Some people say I was too harsh, that eradicating every member of their family was not necessary. But now, there are no bannermen as loyal to their lord as the Westerlands to us. If any lord bridles at our authority, I have only to send a singer with a harp.
The Reigns of Castamere.
Back into line. Because I will not have our lords squabble amongst themselves, like the lords of the Riverlands, or hide in their castles like the lords of the Vale, each of our bannermen contributes a unique skill that furthers the whole of the Westerlands. House Clegane, because every lord needs a beast from time
Is that the mountain?
time. Sir Gregor strikes terror into the hearts of our enemies and our friends. So too does his disappointing brother Sander, the traitor.
Okay.
House Payne, who provides us loyal
House
servants.
Payne.
Is that like Connect 4?
Payne was once
A Connect
captain
3?
of my household guard.
Sudoku.
Until the Mad King heard him boast that I ran
Tic-tac-toe.
7 kingdoms, which I did. The Mad King tore out Sir Ilin's tongue, making him especially well-suited to later become the King's Justice. Apparently these days, a
Oh my
younger
God.
Payne also
Joffrey in the
serves
back.
my degenerate son, Tyrion. House Lefford, who guards the Golden Tooth.
That is crazy. I've actually never realized
The
that.
mountains and the all too
House
frequent chaos of the
Lefford?
7 kingdoms.
The dude who got his tongue cut
After
out?
Robb Stark's recent incursions,
I did not.
we
Podrick.
need a new gatekeeper.
Oh.
His last name's Payne.
Look at the west
Oh.
Ah.
see
Podrick
gold.
Payne?
Fools see our wealth and
Pod the
Seems
Rod.
like rename him to Podrick Pleasure. It's, you know?
the
That-
Westerlands are strong.
I wish that was funny.
From strong
I'm sorry.
leadership
The delivery
comes
was
unity.
poor.
From unity comes power.
Cut that shit out.
Wrath has lulled many a novice sailor into complacency. Our lush island sits on calm blue water like an emerald set into a sapphire. You would never guess that such a vision is only the sheath hiding the blade of Shipbreaker Bay, with its treacherous tides, unpredictable gales, and sharp rocks lurking just below the water's surface. The storms that blow through the bay water the Kingswood and Rainwood, 2 of the great forests of Westeros, and they give the Stormlands their name. Even without
Stormlands.
our weather, we have more than earned our name in strife. The first Storm King, Durin, started his reign by declaring war on the gods themselves.
How'd
He
that
loved
go?
the daughter of the sea god and the wind goddess, but they forbade the union. At their wedding, the gods unleashed their might, pulling down his hold and killing all of Durin's family and guests.
Damn,
who
haters.
shielded him. Durin vowed to rebuild, and when he did, the gods again destroyed his home. His counselors
Okay,
begged him to retreat
second
inward,
time.
but he would not abandon his war. Finally, with the council of the children of the forest, or perhaps a young Bran the Builder, Durin raised a 7th
That's a name we've
castle
heard.
that, try as they might, and still do, the wind and sea gods could not tear asunder. Durin took the name God's Grief and called his new home Storm's End. Having beaten the waters to the east, the Storm Kings turned their gaze to more practical enemies, the Reach, Riverlands, and Dawn. For thousands of years, the Storm Kings fought the Gardener Kings of the Reach and various families of Dawn for control of the Dornish marches just below the Red Mountains. The fighting didn't stop until Dawn married into the 7 Kingdoms, a mere 100 years ago. But still the houses of the Stormlands, such as the Dondarians, guard the Boneway, the mountain pass into the marches against any Dornish incursion. The Storm Kings had greater luck to their north, at first. They took the trident from the River Kings and built an empire that stretched as far as the neck. But then the Ironborn swarmed out of their islands and pushed the Storm Kings out of the Riverlands.
Damn.
No doubt the Ironborn intended to expand their empire into the Stormlands. Before they had a chance, Aegon Targaryen landed with his dragons.
Third party.
Aegon burned the kings of the Iron Islands, the Rock and the Reach. His fiercest commander and rumoured bastard brother, Orys Baratheon, set out to subdue the Stormlands.
Baratheon?
No matter how fierce a warrior
what?
he was, no one could have envied his task. Storm's End had seen thousands of years of war and never fallen. But Argilac, the Storm King, chose not to barricade himself behind its walls and gave Orys the battle he must have hoped for. Orys slew Argilac and took Argilac's castle, kingdom, daughter, sigil, and house words. House Baratheon became the lord of the Stormlands.
Damn.
Interesting.
Targaryen rule quieted the Stormlands for the most part, until Robert rebelled against the Mad King. His first challenge came not from the crown, but from his own bannermen, who tried to join forces against him. Robert struck first, defeating 3 armies in a single day at Summerhall. The victory cemented Robert's control of the Stormlands, and he was able to march on the Reach and Riverlands with no enemy to his rear. Yet not all of Robert's bannermen sided with him. Sir Barristan the Bold came from the Stormlands, but as the pre-eminent member of Aerys Kingsguard and greatest knight in the realm, Sir Barristan remained loyal. After Robert's decisive victory on the Trident, Robert sent his own maester to care for his countryman Sir Barristan, who had suffered grievous wounds whilst fighting so hard to kill him.
Saved
Later,
him.
when the Kingslayer betrayed Aerys, Robert pardoned Sir Barristan and even took him onto his own Kingsguard.
Seeing Robert in his prime.
When Robert lifted
Crazy.
Mace Tyrell's ill-managed siege of Storm's End and returned to his ancestral home, he realized the dream
Those
of
chairs
all the
make them look so
Storm Lords
short.
before him, to rule the 7 kingdoms. Then Robert died, and his brother Stannis killed their other brother, the noble King Henry, with black magic. Now the Stormlands again live up to their name, with so many houses burnt on the Blackwater and others currying
black
favour
magic.
with the Lannisters to seize the survivors' lands. Renly could have saved
Non-believers.
us. If only I could have saved him. But I will teach Stannis a lesson he should have learnt growing up in the Stormlands. As lightning gives way to thunder, so too must murder lead to vengeance.
Okay.
Billy.
Really cements how she's feeling.
was not the first to conquer the world. In the dawn of days, the city of Geese opened its gates and poured forth its legions across the continent of Essos. With their lockstep discipline and absolute obedience, they ground entire nations beneath their boots and planted the harpy in every corner.
Isn't this the one we've already watched?
What they didn't destroy,
No.
they chained. Slavery is as old as man.
What do you guys?
The Giscari, it
It's-
was never an art.
Who's talking?
It's Jorah.
Jorah?
And fat as pyramids were raised around.
Who
talked to the first one, huh?
We're talking about the harpies again.
Fighting pits were open.
Yeah.
Nobody remembers if the waters around Geese had names before the Empire.
Is this the exact
but
same
ever
one?
since,
Oh.
we know them only as Slavers
Yeah.
Bay and the Gulf of Grief.
Well,
You just roll with it.
Of Geese,
just
however,
rolling with it.
nothing remains but ruins, where end all
I'm checking
great
the-
civilizations. 5,000 years ago, Valyrian shepherds
I think it's
stumbled
different.
on strange eggs, and within a few
Is
I'm
this
looking
like
at
the
someone who
exact
did
same thing?
timestamps.
Valyrian freehold rose across the sea.
Someone did timestamps,
Did the Giscari
and it looks
contend
different?
with Valyria, and 5
Yeah,
times
shorter.
it is the same
down
one.
in defeat. For the freehold
Okay.
had dragons.
The timestamp
I mean,
says Slavers Bay and Valyrian Freehold again.
The best of their
Yeah, but the
legions
next timestamp
burned,
after is
the
much
others
shorter.
broke.
The first one was like
walls
5
of
minutes,
Geese
this
were
one's
pulled
2.
down, the streets and buildings
I mean, I
turned
guess
to
if this is the same,
very
pretty
fields
much.
sown with
Oh.
salt, sulfur, and skulls.
Those are just legitimate
Empire was
harpies,
not
fantastic,
wholly
like,
destroyed.
fantasy creatures.
For
I need to see them.
and Marine, once lowly colonies along Slavers Bay, survived and even thrived. Valyria had watched the Giscari grow rich and powerful off the backs of conquered peoples, and now the self-styled Freehold wanted its turn.
Trust the vision.
While the Dragon Lords brought the world to heal, the slave
This was necessary for us to see twice. For information retention.
The descendants of old geese grew rich and fat. The doom fell on Valyria.
I could actually look at this time instead of listening. Shh, write shit down.
Continent at will. But gold-laden Astapor, Yunkai, and Marine continue as they have for thousands of years, untouched.
I trust Thrones Insider.
Even the Horse Lords understand what the Giscari taught Valyria so long ago. What good are slaves without slavers?
Yeah, that was the same.
Growing up, my sister Sansa loved stories with princesses and knights, but I always wanted to be scared.
Oh.
When my turn came, I would ask old Nan to tell us of magic and monsters.
This is Jojen?
Long ago, when the world was new,
That's Bran.
the children of the forest sang
Sounds
the
like
song
Bran.
of the earth, and the earth
This is Bran?
It's Bran
Yeah,
with
and
a
he talks
list.
about
was strong in those
old
days.
man, or old Nan.
The children could commune with all the beasts of the forest, streams, and air. The greatest of them could even leave their bodies to hunt, swim, and fly in the skins of animals. They were the first wargs. Then, the first men came with fire and sword. They burned the weirwoods and cut down the children. Calling on dark magic, the children raised the sea and shattered the land bridge that the first men had crossed into dawn. When
Nice.
that failed, the children brought down the hammer of waters upon the neck, flooding and transforming it into the bog it is today. After peace came, the two races shared the land and the children's gods for thousands of years. Now comes the good part. Nobody knows how or why, but the magic of the children began to emerge in men. Maybe one child in 1,000 would be born a warg. Fewer still would be born with the sight. Old Nan would not speak of it, and Maester Lewin never believed in it. But with it, the children could know of events far away and even those still to come. Some say the sight was the children's most powerful and terrible secret, and helped turn the tide during the long night. Magic has since fled our world. Among the small folk, any child suspected of being a warg will be left out to die.
Okay.
On the wall, though, a careless hunter might still find his prey has claws and teeth, and a man's mind to guide them. For the wildlings have a different idea of monsters.
Yeah.
But even wildlings keep their distance from a warg, because, and here, old Nan would lean in close and whisper, how can you tell if the man is wearing the beast, or
if the beast is wearing the man? Damn.
Now,
She's
Nan
spitting.
has no more tales.
Why are we watching this if Igley's
Lewin will never scoff again.
seen it already?
Fine. I don't like scary
That
stories
vision.
anymore. Because I'm in one.
Okay. It did not sound like Bran to me, but okay.
The mic settings were a little different than what you hear in the show.
Yeah, that's fair.
I thought the sun could never set on the north.
This voice is
Who's this one?
unmistakable.
Yeah.
Part of me still does. The north is by far the largest of the 7 kingdoms, and can fit the other 6 inside it. Not that the others care. Cold and damp. That's how the southerners see the north. But without the cold, a man can't appreciate the fire in his hearth.
He's
Without
spitting.
the rain, a man can't appreciate the roof over his head. Let the south have its sun, flowers and affectations. We northerners have home. Mine was once Winterfell, the ancient seat of my father's family, House Stark, who have ruled the
Father's
north since
family,
the
huh?
first men and were once the kings of winter. Growing up, Lady Catelyn made sure I knew I wasn't a Stark, no matter how much blood I shared with her true-born children. But where their name rules over the north, mine is the north. Snow. Our land
Yeah.
stretches from the wall down to the neck, a narrow land that divides us from the rest of Westeros. Legend has it that the children of the forest flooded it in their war against the first men. If that's true, Every Northman owes them a debt of gratitude. The swamps of the Neck are as good as the wall for keeping out unwelcome armies. And if the swamps don't deter you, the Crannog men should. Small, shy people who rarely leave those swamps, and who follow House Reed, the gatekeepers of the North, and among the most important and loyal bannermen of House Stark. Also a bit strange. I heard their oath of fealty once as a child. It's like no other lords, ancient and dark. They swear by earth and water, by bronze and iron, and by ice and fire. Where House Reed holds the gate to the north, House Manderley holds the port, White Harbour, the closest thing to a southern city we have, governed by the closest thing to a southern family we have. Generations ago, the Manderleys were driven from the Reach, but the Starks gave them their land in return for fealty.
It's a tough pose.
Now White Harbour is the richest city of the north, and the Manderleys the richest family. Not in gold and silver like their southern counterparts, but in fish, grain, and trade. As for the other great northern houses, the Starks brought them into the fold during the Age of Heroes. A Stark wrestled an Ironborn for Bear Island and gave it to the Mormons. A Stark granted a keep and land to a younger son, Carlon, in return for putting down a rebellion. His family then grew up into the Karstarks. The Starks fought the Wildlings and their kings beyond the wall beside the Umbers of Last Earth, thus earning their fealty. Boltons. Back then they were the bane of the North. A few were even rumoured to wear their enemies' flayed skins as cloaks. But after centuries of war, they too bent the knee. And so House Stark became the kings in the North, but never forgot that they weren't the North. When Aegon and his dragons landed on Westeros, the kings of the Rock and the Reach sent all their men to die to defend their crowns. Torrhen Stark knelt, to spare his people the same fate. He placed duty above pride, just as my brothers in the Night's Watch had done for thousands of years at the Wall. Many think of it as the end of the world, but it's not. I've seen how the land stretches much farther than any man knows, into the land of always winter where the White Walkers came from during the long night. After the first men and the children of the forest beat them back, Brandon the Builder raised the wall and set up the Night's Watch to guard the realms of men. He gave us our oath, our castles and the gift, the lands behind the wall whose farmers and crops sustain us. Southerners may now mock my black brothers as thieves, rapers and worse, and not without cause. But the North remembers why we are there, and if we fall, the South will get a very harsh and very cold reminder.
Yep.
Men have fought over the Riverlands since the Dawn Age, though that's to be expected of things that rest below the Neck. Doesn't help that the Riverlands are between everything and everything else. The Westerlands gold, the Reaches grain, the Vales rock, and the North's snow? House Mud once ruled as the kings of the rivers and hills, but after 1,000 years their line was exhausted and fell to the Storm Kings, who fell to the Ironborn. I suppose after
everyone's fallen.
Drowning at sea, our rivers look pretty attractive to that race of pirates and rapers. Never mind that their monstrous castle, Harrenhal, was too large to staff and garrison. It turned out the Ironborn wouldn't be there long enough to bother. Aegon Targaryen landed to our south, and, as had many before him, liked the look of the Riverlands. My ancestor Edmund Tully led the desertion of Riverlords to his cause, and was rewarded by
oh, this is the Blackfish.
Burn in his own tower. Unfortunately, that's not all Edmund got. House Tully was named the Lords Paramount of the Trident, which means we had to keep in line all those lords who hadn't governed themselves for thousands of years.
Easy
we
job.
were responsible for aiding the Mallisters at Seaguard against the pouting Ironborn whenever they got cheeky. For settling Harrenhal on families stupid enough to think its curse would skip them after devouring all previous families. for keeping the Blackwoods and Brackens from wiping each other out, and giving us 2 more castles to deal with, for keeping the Freys in their place and out of others' pockets.
So Walter Frey with long hair.
Our sons and daughters wisely enough, so we didn't follow House Mud into, well, mud. Yet under
Have you seen this before?
The Riverlands knew a peace we hadn't had for centuries, if ever. But like all good things, sooner or later it all goes to shit. And our shit had a name. Aerys Targaryen. Westeros has had its share of mad kings, but usually they had the sense not to bully more than one powerful house at a time. Aerys soon blundered into a triple alliance. The North, Stormlands, and Vale rose against him. But of course, where do you think most of the blood was spilled? My brother Hoster guaranteed the answer to that with the marriage of my niece to Eddard Stark, the Warden of the North. At least Hoster didn't send her to Robert. So, the Riverlands joined the war against the Mad King, and it was on one of our rivers that Prince Rhaegar died, sealing the fate of his dynasty. Robert was a great soldier and a horrible king. Drinking and whoring are their own brand of madness when you sit on a throne that everybody wants. He died, and another war started.
He died.
Again the armies marched. Again the Riverlands burned. If Westeros isn't careful, pretty soon our people will grow some sense and abandon this place for a safer realm, like the Dothraki Sea. I joke, of course. The Riverlands are our home, and God's help us, we love it. Still, as they say, the king eats and the hand takes the shit. The same is true of the Riverlands. The 7 kingdoms piss, and the Riverlands change clothes.
Yeah. Just piss up river.
Other houses chose dragons, krakens, and lions for their sigils. We Tullys took the trout.
The trout is strong.
Of fish.
The trout is strong.
Leaps out of the water. I suppose you don't have many options when you live in the Riverlands.
The trout nurtures.
Worse, we could have been minnows or wheat. After all, we make a lot of it. Though a land doesn't get as fertile as ours just by water. The old river kings, storm kings, and the kings of the rock
fertilized by blood.
Blood here for thousands of years, squabbling like children over a new toy, until the Ironborn came and spanked them with their axes. Under Harren the Black, their kingdom stretched all the way to the God's Eye, where they built the largest castle Westeros had ever seen. Maesters teach that Harren was a fool, but he had some sense. If you're going to enslave and torture an entire people, you best have thick walls to hide behind. But the very day the last stone was laid in Harrenhal, Aegon Targaryen landed in Westeros.
Damn, he waited for that.
Aegon's host on the horizon, my ancestor Edmund led the mass desertion of riverlords to Aegon's side. I doubt Harren even noticed. The problem with huge castles is they blind you to what's outside, both by their size
He's just
and
enjoying a meal.
They inspire. Not that the Ironborn ever lacked for that. They take pride in their ignorance of every trapping of civilization. Though any baker could have told them that fire turns stone walls into an oven. And so
oh my god, cooked alive?
Finally lived up to his name, and the River Lord swept the Ironborn back to the sea.
That's crazy.
In return for Edmund's service, House Tully was made Aegon's new Lord Paramount of the Trident, and all the other lords had to swear us fealty. But old habits die hard. The Riverlands are and always have been the middle child of Westeros, caught up in every fart from one lord at another. My ancestors knew that for the Tullys to survive, alliances must be made. Our trout has swum up so many rivers over the centuries and leapt onto so many plates that it's a wonder half the realm's sigils don't have fins by now. Thus, every Tully child is taught family, duty, honor. The Tully words. And pains in the Tully arse. When I returned from the War of the Ninepenny Kings, people called me Sir Brendan. But my older brother Hoster called me Engaged. A great match with a very rich house, to be sure. But I just fought and killed a great deal of men and had no desire to be told when and whom to marry. I broke ties with him, earning the name Blackfish along with my personal sigil. A much more intimidating black trout. I was too stubborn at the time to realize that while other houses fight with swords, House Tully fights with marriages. Then my niece Catelyn's betrothal to Brandon Stark drew us into the war against the Mad King, while my other niece Lysa's betrothal to Jon Arryn cemented the rebellion. If I'd have obeyed my older brother earlier, we'd have had the largest navy in Westeros with us then as well, and our victory would have been swift. Of course, I never mentioned this fact to my brother. He'd have taken it as an apology. My brother is dead now, and my nephew Edmure rules in Riverrun. God's help us. A tribe that can't tell the worm from the hook. But he is a Tully, and he is unmarried, and there is a war. We all know how this story ends. Maybe she'll be beautiful. Maybe she'll be rich. As long as she brings swords and men to House Tully, she could look like the fish we hang all over Riverrun. He'll honor his duty to family and swallow it.
Man.
One blackfish per family can be overlooked. 2, and we'd have to change all those pretty banners.
The Reach is aptly named. We're the ones who give your hands something to do at the table. As the most fertile region of the Seven Kingdoms, we grow the lion's share of the green fruit that feeds the region. Especially now, since the has burned down the other fields. Thankfully, House Tyrell is here to do its duty to the crown and keep the capital from starvation. Yet, as with all gardens, weeds grow in the Reach too, though few name them as such. Singers fill our heads with chivalry and courtly love, fluff to make boys fight and girls swoon.
Nice swan boat.
Good enough for a pleasure barge down the Manda. They give pleasure to the common people and harmony to the realm. But if the rise of House Tyrell proves anything, it's that virtue and honor have their place. And if you're not careful, that place is the grave. Unlike the Lannisters, Starks, and Arryns, we were never kings in our own right. House Gardner ruled the Reach since the Dawn Age, and we were their stewards. While they warred to enrich their already rich domain, we managed their castle of Highgarden. But then Aegon Targaryen landed with his dragons. Nobody knows why the Gardener King took the field against him.
New patch shrub.
Anyone could see that a man who grows flowers should beware a man who grows fire-breathing monsters. But maybe it wasn't wholly his idea. Maybe someone whispered in his ear about all the face he'd lose with the other 6 kings if he stayed home. The rest is history. The last Gardener King lost his face, along with his body, and his steward Harlan Tyrell promptly yielded Highgarden to Aegon. My grandmother swears that Harlan was like most of our men, and grew up banging steel together too loudly for a thought to penetrate. But luckily, his wife had better sense. Whatever the case, in return for Harlan's show of sense, Aegon proclaimed House Tyrell the Lords of the Reach and Wardens of the South, passing over all the other houses with better claims.
Is that both his sisters on the left and right?
Hightower, who were kings before the Andals came, their seat is the oldest city in Westeros. They call it Old Town.
Oh, okay.
Wealthy, proud and solitary. There have been Hightowers who wouldn't come down from their great lighthouse for decades.
Hightower.
Its name, fittingly, is the Hightower.
Very,
who had actual blood
very good naming. Creative.
They whinge about their ancient rights to Highgarden every once in a while, and now that their daughter is married to Stannis Baratheon, about their rights to all of Westeros too. Apparently, putting a fox on your banners doesn't impart a fox's wiles. House Tarly, who still gives the Reach the best soldiers it has. If Aegon had named them as his lords, the Reach would have become the greatest military camp in the world, until it starved to death. The price for conscripting all the farmers. Yet Aegon chose us. Centuries later, when his descendant Aerys faced rebellion, the Reach stayed loyal. Mostly. My father, Mace, dealt Robert his only defeat in the war, even if it was my father's vanguard who did most of the fighting before he arrived. After the Battle of Ashford, we laid siege to Storm's End, Robert's home. Unfortunately, the war ended before we could take it and free up our armies to go save the king. The new King Robert had a forgiving nature. Our crimes were brushed aside without even one execution for the sake of formality. Our family was surprised until Robert's new hand, Jon Arryn, came by with the bill. The Reach is second only to the Westerlands in wealth, and Robert meant to spend as much of it as he could get his hands on.
Oh my god, on a feast?
We gave him the coins he wanted, and later, when he wanted our grain or fruit or wine, he gave them back at whatever price we set. Now, much of Westeros is ashes. The rest of it is armies. As the Starks are fond of saying, winter is coming, and for leagues outside the capital there isn't a harvest to be seen. Have no fear. The Reach is, as always, bountiful. House Tyrell will manage the harvest and keep the Seven Kingdoms from starvation, like the good stewards we once were. Just ask House Gardner.
I love Marjorie.
Impregnable.
Yeah.
That's how the Vale sees itself.
Give me some climate spikes, I'll impregnate.
Mountains. They call the entrance to their land the Bloody Gate because, during the Age of Heroes, a dozen armies supposedly smashed themselves against it. Even if they'd gotten through, the roads of the Vale are narrow, steep, and treacherous. Half their men would have slipped to their deaths, or frozen in the mountain snow. Or so the common wisdom goes. Except the Vale has been conquered.
Oh my god. Is he being choked out?
Stop the Andals who came by the Eastern Sea. The people of the Vale say that Sir Artus Arryn, the Andal general, flew on the back of a giant falcon and slew the Griffin King
a falcon.
on the tallest mountain.
Millennium?
During Aegon's conquest, one of his sisters did the same, flying her dragon over the Bloody Gate and up to the Eyrie, the Arryn stronghold.
Kind of bigger than a falcon.
The Boy King yielded the Vale in return for a ride on the beast.
Oh,
good deal.
Here? The rationalizing of defeats with mythical beasts and the whims of children, instead of acknowledging the root cause, the arrogance of isolation. The men of the Vale are so proud of their mountains, they can't abide any flaw in them. As with the mountains, so too with their blood. The first Andals landed in the Vale as its most powerful lords, the Arryns, the Waynwoods, the Corbrays, like to brag. Through their veins runs the blood of the oldest Andal nobility in Westeros. But through their brains runs an even older folly. That blood matters. If it did, those pure-born lords should have been able to exterminate the hill tribes centuries ago. But those primitive raiders, whose tribes more resemble kennels than families, continue to plague the Vale, even kidnapping an Arryn once. Until Tyrion Lannister, an outsider, no Vale lord ever thought to turn the tribes to the Vale's advantage. That a desperate, warlike people could be useful, not to mention inexpensive.
Or Shag is son of Dolph.
Lords consider such thoughts beneath them. After all, the Vale's isolation does breed an abundance of honor and pious bleating, which governs their decisions instead of foresight. Like a blind man who can only guess where his horse is taking him. I doubt Jon Arryn had even prepared for civil war.
Man, we haven't seen the Vale in a while.
Instead of handing over his young wards, Ned Stark and Robert Baratheon, to the Mad King. Honor demanded, and Lord Arryn obeyed. He'd have done the same if the boys hadn't been the lords of two great houses, who could field mighty armies of their own. But perhaps I give him too little credit. After all, if the war went against them, only Lord Arryn had a nice, impregnable castle to retreat into, and he was wise enough to take
Yo, this
poor
bitch
Lysa
pregnant as
Tully
fuck.
into his bed to win the Riverlands as allies.
She's not.
John Arryn won, then John Arryn died. Wisely, the Vale stayed out of all the ensuing chaos. Its crops did not burn or wither in the fields from lack of men to tend them. Its strength was not drained by forced marches to futile skirmishes.
I forgot the rocks
In
on the over the
Vale,
eyes.
life proceeds as it always has. Calm, proud. A world of high honor undisturbed by armies and men of low birth, but high ambition. Impregnable.
Such a funny word.
I was born youngest of 8 in Myr, across the narrow sea. So my father gave me over to the Red Temple. In their wisdom, they decided to make me a priest instead
The Red
of a
Temple.
warrior or a temple prostitute like other children.
Okay.
It was not the path I would have chosen. Sure, I prayed the prayers and I spoke the spells, but I also led raids on the kitchens. And from time to time, they found girls in my bed. Such wicked girls. I never knew how they got there. Then again, I did have a gift for tongues. And when I gazed into the flames, well, from time to time...
Could he be my boy John, though?
Even so, I was more bother than I was worth. When the High Priest foresaw Robert's ascension, he sent me to turn the Storm Lord to the Lord of Light. When Robert seized his crown, we'd take all of Westeros from the Seven in a single stroke. Perhaps they thought Robert would listen to a kindred spirit, or perhaps celibacy had addled the High Priest's brain. I didn't know, and didn't care. I was free. I did my duty as I saw it, drinking and whoring and waving my sword around. The only gods Robert cared about anyway. Years passed, Robert became king, I became a joke, we both became fat. I even won some glory in Greyjoy's rebellion, first through the breach and all that. It's amazing what boldness a full bladder can inspire.
Nice.
But Robert had stopped listening to my sermons a long time ago, even if I'd still bothered to give them. Then came Robert's death, and the war. I'm not speaking of those brats squabbling over the world's pointiest chair. Powers long asleep are waking and moving through the land. I've seen them in my flames. Shit, I've seen them with my own 2 eyes. The Lord of Light is real.
You heard that, Igloo?
And if he's real,
No.
then all of it is real.
It's really weird. My audio cut out.
Once again faces the war for the dawn, which has been waged.
What do you say?
since time began.
That doesn't
On
matter.
one side is the Lord of Light, the Heart of Fire, the God of Flame and Shadow.
Heart of
Against
Fire.
him stands the Great Other, whose name
The Great
will be
Other?
spoken. The
Oh,
Lord
this
of
guy sounds
Darkness,
cool.
The Soul of Ice, the God of
Oh.
Night and Terror.
Oh. Oh.
According to prophecy, our champion will be reborn, to wake dragons from stone and reforge the great sword Lightbringer that defeated the darkness those thousands of years ago. If the old tales are true, a terrible weapon forged with the lifeblood of a loving wife's heart.
Oh.
Part of me thinks man was well rid of it. But great power requires great sacrifice. That much, at least, the Lord of Light is clear on. I sound like a dried-out old woman, I know. But as our former hand liked to say, winter is coming. When the cold winds rise, all men, no matter their faith or lack of it, huddle beside my night fires. And I pray the prayers, and speak the spells, and beseech the Lord of Light to bring back the dawn. So far, so good. But reprobate as I am, I can't help but wonder what will happen if, one day, our Lord does not answer. Imagine a night that goes on forever, so dark and full of terrors.
The night is dark.
I think I need another drink.
Full of terrors.
Dragonglass.
For 300 years, the Targaryen dynasty ruled Westeros. Wars were still fought, homes still burned, and men still died. But compared to the chaos of what came before, the realm was stable. And boring. The Targaryens lied, thieved, and
We get both?
killed as much
Got some
as
audio
other
pan
lords.
action going on.
They just had dragons
Damn.
to answer all complaints. Until they didn't. When the last dragon died, it was only a matter of time before the Targaryens followed. By only,
I'll take my right headphone out.
Which they wasted trying to replace their lost advantage. Incinerating their own palaces to hatch dragon eggs, drinking wildfire to become dragons, and let's not forget the Mad King's favorite, burning men alive so he could pretend to be a dragon.
We
I mean, I was role-playing.
to pardon Brandon Stark. The boy had threatened Prince Rhaegar, but Rhaegar had stolen the boy's sister. And the boy was the eldest son of our Warden of the North.
Who's the greater fool, a Mad King or the man who reasons with him? Aerys saw knives in every shadow. When you told him to treat the Starks with caution, you made him
Maybe if
afraid.
he had more light.
And what he feared, he killed.
I wouldn't have thought you, of all people, would bother with recriminations for Brandon's death, Lord Baelish. Not after your, shall we call it, duel with him?
Brandon was as arrogant as he was stupid. Like his father, Lord Stark, who answered Aerys' summon to the capital. They earned their fates. But the younger son, Ned, what was his crime? That Aerys ordered his death as well.
Unlike men, families don't die when you lop off their head.
At the very least, you should have pointed out that loyal and dutiful Ned was living with Jon Arryn, a proud and over-righteous lord with an impregnable castle and no sons of his own. Perhaps you could have spared Aerys the embarrassment of revolt.
He's got one son.
If only we'd had the foresight to consult you, Lord Baelish, but I suppose first we'd have had to know who you were.
Nobody knew Robert Baratheon either, yet he claimed the right to sit on the Iron Throne.
He had Targaryen blood, through his mother.
A pretty dress for
that
an
is
ugly
new.
Truth. It was war, and he could swing a hammer harder than the other options. When did you know you'd lost, Lord Varys?
When Robert Baratheon killed Prince Rhaegar on the Trident.
Wrong. You lost the war when you let Ned Stark slip back into the north. Neither the bloody Gate of the Vale or Moat Cailin in the north have ever fallen. They could have held out for years, even if you'd killed Robert. But you let him slip through your fingers as well.
I told the court that Robert was hiding in the Stony Sept, but the hand of the king wasted too much time searching the city. Something about the glory of single combat. Then Ned Stark's army arrived to save the day.
Too bad Lord Tywin wasn't a hand any longer. He would have simply razed the town and been done with it.
Perhaps.
Damn.
And perhaps the rebels would have found even more of the countryside flocking to their banners.
I'd almost forgotten. You weren't always so loyal to the Lannisters during the war, were you?
I did my duty to the realm. When Lord Tywin showed up at King's Landing professing loyalty, I warned Aerys not to open the gates. Prince Rhaegar was dead, our army scattered. The lion does not stir unless he smells meat.
I admire your powers of persuasion, Lord Varys. Few could traffic in so many secrets to so little avail.
Grand Maester Pycelle told Aerys what he wanted to hear, that his old friend Tywin was there to save him.
Then Aerys' old friend sacked the city, and his son stabbed Aerys in the back.
A regrettable, though necessary action.
As were the pardons the new King Robert bestowed on the royalists. Mace Tyrell, Barristan Selmy, you.
King Robert wisely chose order over vengeance.
Jon Arryn wisely chose for Robert, but Jon Arryn died. Then Robert, then Ned. So ended their glorious revolution.
And Westeros has been burning ever since.
Let it.
How Targaryen
Let it.
of you. One of the mad ones.
Fire turns even the proudest oaks to ash, leaving newer roots space to climb.
Schemer.
Some men just want to watch the world burn.
Rise to power through strength, others through wealth.
Who's this?
House Frey
It's Cat.
gained its title through cunning. Centuries ago, its founder looked at a map and noticed
Can't wait for
how
that
the trident
bridge to be burned.
spears the neck, cutting off the north from the south. He realized that a river of gold would flow to the man who owned the right bridge across the water. It took the Freys 3 generations to complete their forefathers' vision. A massive arch of smooth grey rock, wide enough for 2 wagons to pass abreast. When they were done, they built high curtain walls, deep moats, and heavy gates to protect the approaches, and put up squat, ugly, formidable keeps on either bank. The twins, commanding both road and river with arrow slits, murder holes, and portcullises. The twins ensure that no one crosses without begging the Frey's leave and paying the Frey's toll. The plan worked. The family grew rich and powerful, exacting gold from lords, merchants, and poor farmers. A good thing too, given the number of Freys the bridge has to support. The current lord, Walder Frey, has seen over 90 name days and sired near as many children, true-born or otherwise. A shameful thing in any other lord, but Walder Frey possesses no shame. A dangerous thing for any other lord, but Walder Frey has no concern for heirs or fear of their impatience. Perhaps Lord Frey thinks to outlast them all. Given the infighting he encourages among them, perhaps he will. Whatever the case, House Frey does nothing so well as survive. When the Ironborn conquered and razed the Riverlands, the Freys hid in their castle. When Aegon and House Tully swept the Ironborn back to their islands, the Freys hid in their castle. When my ancestor demanded their allegiance as Aegon's new Lord Paramount of the Trident, the Freys bent the knee from their castle. Perhaps then we should not have been surprised.
They'd love staying in their
father,
castle.
Lord Hoster Tully, called his banners against the Mad King, and Lord Walder didn't answer. The Baratheons, Starks, Aarons, and Tullys, some of the oldest and greatest houses of Westeros, fought and bled for the cause of justice, while House Frey hid in its castle and waited. No doubt if Rhaegar had won at the Trident, Lord Walder would have given him safe passage into the north to destroy the rest of my husband's northern army for a fair price. But Rhaegar fell, and lo and behold, the Frey army appeared to render aid to our already victorious forces.
Okay.
Many sniggered that Lord Walder had been waiting for his army to come of age, having fielded it out of his own breeches. My own father named him the late Lord Frey, to the other lord's amusement.
The late?
A slight that pricks Lord Walder.
I hope there's a double meaning for that later.
In many ways, however, Lord Walder was wise. We had no guarantee of victory, and had he fought with us from the outset and we failed, he would have lost the bridge his family was so proud of. More pride than honor. Those should be the words of House Frey. Yet part of me wonders if Lord Walder waited not out of fear but hope that we would be destroyed, leaving him to assume my family's place as Lord Paramount of the Trident, to buy the respect they've always wanted but refused to earn. No, not even Lord Walder could be so disloyal.
No.
No.
Never.
All right.
Coward.
That was that.
That is indeed that.
Mine autoplayed into the middle of season 4 Histories and Lore because I was screening it, and I'm like, another 30 minutes?
We just did an hour. This one's really long. So, I think the most shocking bit of news, I'm sorry, did you want to say?
I was just going to say, so what do you got?
I think the most shocking bit of news is that, I don't know if it was previously said or not, but how the Baratheons and Robert have Targaryen blood. Like there was it was like Oris Targaryen or Oris Baratheon that then founded House Baratheon, but he was, I think, a general, someone high up with the Targaryens. I thought that was really interesting. So Robert is of Targaryen blood, partially.
He's got a little bit in the tank.
Yeah. He's got a dragon somewhere. But besides that, we got like a lot of lore regarding the free cities after I mean, like, since we spent so much time with them and finding out the lore about them.
We got so much lore. We watched it twice.
Yeah. How the Unsullied whooped the Dothraki. That was pretty cool. It makes me like wonder. I mean, for now, Daenerys is still in the continent. If the Dothraki ride up on her again, this time she has an army to fight for her. Granted, on an open field, that might be pretty dangerous. But if they have like their backs against a wall, like if they have a wall at their backs where they can't be circled around, that could probably be better. But no, it was all very interesting. New bits of lore I didn't know before. Them elaborating on some of the more houses that we saw more of in this past season. House Bitch, my bad, I mean Bolton. And House Frey. Two houses I can't wait to see burn down. But yeah, I don't know. And also seeing like more of like hearing more of the Bannermen regarding like the Lannisters and the Starks, kind of just putting it into perspective, which you could piece together before, but it was kind of hard to keep track of, and like kind of showing how the greater realm interacts as a whole. Like, I guess more so not right now because a lot of it's not relevant, but like before all this madness happened. Like how the Lannisters had control the West and how the Starks controlled the North through unity of the different houses. Yeah,
it's like they acquired it through honor while everyone else did it through blood.
Yeah. And also the bit with Thoros of Myr was really interesting.
Yeah. I mean, he saw the White Walkers in the flames. The Lord of Light is real.
They also name dropped I guess they didn't really name drop him, but we got name dropped of someone who should not be named. The Dark One. The God of Night, I think they called him. That's
God of Night?
The God, is that what they said? Did they say God of Night?
That's what they said, yeah.
Yeah. To rival the Lord of Light? Crazy.
This will be someone Iggly worships.
Listen. I'll ride with the Lord of Light if my boy John becomes Lightbringer. That's the only way I'm riding with him.
Well,
it is left to be seen.
Get ready to learn the Lord of Light, buddy.
Well, I just learned that the Rays resigned Erasmo Ramirez to minor league deal. That's really cool.
Yeah.
But yeah. Also a place called Old Town with a tower called High Tower.
Yeah.
George was cooking.
That tower was pretty high, man. It was like
Empire
State.
Yeah.
I
Corey, I don't think you ever played this
knew.
game.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, Oblivion, the Imperial City, the white gold tower. You know what I'm talking about? That's what it reminded me of. Is the hamster spinning?
I don't think Corey's played Oblivion.
I was talking to you. I was talking to you.
I thought you said Corey.
I said Corey. You didn't play this game.
Oh, silly me. Yes, of course.
But, yeah, you know what I'm talking about, right?
Yes, of course.
That's what it reminded me of, minus the kind of surrounding bay. But yeah.
I believe that you already knew.
It's been a while.
Old Town, because it's where the maesters are trained.
Oh,
and I'm pretty sure that that's been mentioned.
I see.
99% positive that's been mentioned.
There's like a lot of small stuff that has just been mentioned in dialogue in Game of Thrones that they elaborate on in this with
I don't
visuals.
expect you to know and remember it because up until this point, like it hasn't been relevant, right? But it has been mentioned, and I know you've at least like thought of it, which is why I'm reminding you. Like that's where the Maester's train is in Old Town. I believe it's even in the High Tower, but I don't know.
Okay.
For sure.
Okay.
But
Corey, is there stuff you learned?
Yeah, I mean, what was the first thing I said? This was early on. I said it was new to me. It was about the harpies, right? Like harpies fighting dragons. That was insane. There's like a lot of like creatures that we don't see in the show, and learning more about the reeds, the swamplands, and like lizard lions. Like I did not know a lot about the reed lore. So that's pretty cool.
Is the lizard lion just a crocodile?
It looks a little different. I mean, I think I saw like a crocodile as well, but the lizard lion looks crazy. Unless it was the same thing.
Yeah, probably different.
So yeah, I mean, there's a lot of stuff. I don't have notes here with me, so I can't really.
I got you. I'll share mine. Don't worry.
Yeah.
I'll tell you. I'll say my favorite bit, like amazing joke, is when the Boltons were called loyal.
Yeah.
I think these are meant to be watched before the season.
Based
on that's what it's kind of given me the vibe is like, would you meet characters that might be introduced in the season before you watch the season? Yes, but I think that's the way they were written, is to be watched before you watch the season.
I see. I think if it's fine to watch after.
I agree. I'm just saying that I think that was the intent when they were written. Is like, hey, you'll watch this Histories and Lore before you watch season 3, is what I think their plan in their mind is. There isn't any fault in even watching this in Corey and I's position, having watched the entire show. There's no problem with it, but I think that's the intent.
I think I could definitely see it because like it kind of gives you, establishes the major set pieces for that season, because everything I was mentioning is incredibly relevant. So you go in with the prior knowledge of like some of the legacy going on here. So just so you can better understand the state of the realm and who these people are, as opposed to getting all that after. That could have been interesting. But
yeah, I think we're doing it the right way for your viewing experience.
Okay.
There's just subtle things where it's like, oh, the most loyal, and you're like, yeah.
Oh, he's loyal. He's a friend. Oh, wait. I mean, I think it's fine. It's fine.
Yeah.
Otherwise I'd be watching these people too much.
True. Watch them like a hawk. Oh, man.
Sound tired? We're about to go into season 4.
I know.
Well, I guess you better wrap it up then. Because I mean, I don't really have anything else to add. I don't know if there's anything Corey, you or Blake have to add.
I'm good. I mean, probably the main other thing I learned, we already talked about. I didn't know, like back in the day, the Unsullied and the Dothraki threw down like that.
So they got whooped.
Yeah.
They cut off their buns, their ponytails, their braids. Crazy.
They sunned them.
And I guess the lore behind like Storm's End and its creation, like it being destroyed multiple times, and they kept showing the lightning strikes because the gods are haters.
With the god?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
All right.
Well,
That's going to do it for this episode of Histories in Lore. If you guys enjoyed it, hit that like button, subscribe, hit that notification bell so you don't miss when our Game of Thrones reactions go live. Like we mentioned earlier, early access to Game of Thrones is available on Patreon, along with full-length reactions to all of our stuff on our channel, including Game of Thrones. We also have a free Discord you can join where you can come in and check that out, talk to us, hang out with us, chill with us, whatever you want. That link's in the description with the Patreon link and links to our social medias, TikTok, Instagram, Twitter. Check all those out. And we'll see you guys very soon.
See ya.
See ya.